So, what are my favorite genres of music? I did a poll asking, what should focus on? Either favorite genres, favorite artists, favorite albums, or favorite songs. And most people said favorite genres was the topic that interested them most. So, yeah, I'm going to go into that. But I'll probably touch on the others a little bit. Now, I actually think of the four, this is the hardest question to answer because it's very hard to define what a genre is. Like, what band or artist is what genre, and what are the main genres that exist? Because potentially there's like infinite genres of music. However, I did a bit of research into it, and I think you can distill most music into 10 main genres. Now, obviously, this doesn't cover all music. There's plenty of music that falls outside these 10. But from the sources I could find on the internet, like on Google, this seems to be the 10 big ones are, in no particular order, um, rock, metal, jazz, blues, folk, pop, hip hop, electronic, classical, and country. Now, some of these group together, like you could group together pop, electronic, hip hop. You could group those three together as being predominantly synthesized music. Um, you could group together to some extent classical and jazz as being band based, like sorry, not band, orchestral based. Like jazz can vary. Like there's jazz bands and jazz orchestras, so it really depends on I think the type of jazz music. Like to my understanding, but classical and jazz also are predominantly instrumental, both of them, although they do have vocal versions as well. You could sort of group those two together, or you could group them each as a group of their own, because classical doesn't really fit in with any of the others. Jazz doesn't fully either. And then the remaining five are all I would call guitar driven music, largely, like definitely rock and metal and country and blues. Now, folk music is the category I find the hardest to define because I've seen everything from Gregorian chants to Tibetan throat singing to Bob Dylan defined as folk music. So, I mean, this is a category I don't even know where to put it because frankly, it's so broadly defined and so amorphous that I don't even necessarily know what it is or what it includes because it includes disparate types of music that have basically nothing in common. But I'll try to grade it on this list of 10 main genres. And obviously again, there's other types of music that don't fit into any of the above like gospel, ragtime, um perhaps some of the like oldies songs, although those I think overlap with jazz a bit. But yeah, like stuff like ragtime, maybe like some types of like gospel music or again like and with this broadly encompassing definition of folk music, like what does and doesn't fit into it. So, I mean, obviously these 10 categories don't include everything, but they include a lot. So, yeah, I would put out of these 10, okay, for me personally, number 10, last place is country music. I just don't like it. It's the type of music, it just doesn't speak to me. Like, as a person who's lived in urban or suburban areas almost all my life, like, I'm not really a rural person. It doesn't seem like particularly interesting music. Like, it's very simplistic. It doesn't really move me emotionally. Like I'd say the closest things to country I like is like maybe Leonard Skinner, which would be considered rock, not country, but maybe it has like a tiny bit of country in its DNA. But like by and large, country music, I'm just not a fan. I'm just not into the whole like, trucks and beer. It's not my culture. But moreover, I just don't like the way it sounds, Like even I can appreciate some types of music that are from a totally different cultural background, like certain forms of like, folk music from like Islamic or Asian or whatever cultures, but even if they're not my favorite thing, I can at least appreciate them. Whereas country, it's just I just can't. I just can't. I just don't like it. I just straight up don't like it. I'm sorry, but I just don't. So it's number 10. Number 9 for me is hip hop slash rap. Now, hip hop slash rap, much like country, I find a lot of it abrasive, and it just again represents a culture that I don't identify with, which is like essentially Black American culture and its various derivatives and other cultures inspired by it. That being said, I can't deny there's a little bit of rap music that I like. Like I like some stuff by Eminem, Aesop Rock, and also moreover, even if there's not that much like straight up hip hop that I like, there is a lot of stuff that I like that has some hip hop influence or heavy elements of hip hop in it. Like bands like say Rage Against the Machine, Linkin Park, Deftones, like a lot of new metal has varying degrees of rap influence. Like in Deftones it's not that much but a little bit. Whereas in Rage Against the Machine or Linkin Park it would be a lot. And then trip hop, as the name implies, has some hip hop elements also, although I would argue it's much more electronic music, which I'll get to later. But yeah, I like a lot of like Massive Attack, for instance. Although the stuff there that I like is not so much their more hip hop heavy stuff, like not so much the album Blue Lines, but more their later stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's some music that I like that has hip hop elements, definitely, but straight up hip hop I'm not a big fan of, and I do find it abrasive. Like I'd say I find like a lot of straight up hip hop about as abrasive, if not more so, than country. But it's like because I like some stuff that's hip hop related, but I don't really like almost anything that's like even remotely country related. I put country as the last. But yes, on a cultural signifier level, I'd say hip hop might be worse than country in the sense that it signifies, this urban Black American culture, which I'm really not a fan of. And I would say even less so than the culture that country music exemplifies, which is like kind of rural redneck culture. I'm not a big fan of either of these cultures, but I would say Black urban American culture is a bit more overtly triggering to me. Like it does trigger a certain sense of just dislike because just the implicit associations with like crime and decay and stuff like that. But nonetheless, I do admit though there is more music that I like that is hip hop adjacent or even actual hip hop compared to country. So that is why, despite the fact that I think hip hop culture is probably the worst culture associated with any musical genre, I'm still putting it as number 9. So number 8 would be blues. This is a genre I would say that I'm aggressively indifferent toward. It's okay. Like I've listened to a little bit of blues music. It's all right. It's not a genre that's really that relevant in this day and age. Frankly, does it even deserve to be mentioned as one of the main genres anymore, or is it more like something like ragtime that is kind of a thing of the past? I don't know. There's definitely blues influence in some music that I like say a lot of the guitarists from earlier decades, like say Slash and Guns N' Roses or Jimmy Page and Jimmy Page is the guitarist, right? Yeah, yeah, in Led Zeppelin. And I mean, yeah, a lot of early rock music does have blues influences, and I do like some of that music. But straight up blues, I don't know. It's I'm kind of indifferent toward it. So I put it at number 8. It's like it's okay. It's not abrasive, but I just don't particularly like it either. It's kind of just there. So anyway, yeah, that would be number 8. Number 7 would be pop. Now, pop is a very big tent music genre. It includes a lot of different types of things, like everything from like 80s pop like what's his name? Bryan Adams. Yeah, like everything from Bryan Adams to like Taylor Swift and Bruno Mars and stuff like that. Like it's a very widely encompassing genre. Basically anything that's like it's music that is sung, not rapped. It can have backing guitar. That's what's confusing. Like what is pop and what is rock? Because some stuff that's considered pop does have guitar. Like as I said, Bryan Adams, he's largely considered a pop artist, but his music is guitar driven. So it's like, why is it called pop and not rock? It's a bit confusing. Whereas stuff like Taylor Swift or, Katy Perry, what have you, Lady Gaga, it tends to be more synthesized music with some like electronic elements. But generally speaking, what pop does have in common, the commonality of all pop music, it's simplistic. It's like verse, chorus, verse, chorus. It's hook driven. It's the opposite of like prog music, which is all about complexity. Pop is all about simplicity. Now, that aspect of pop is something I'm not always a big fan of. I like my music to be a bit more complex. I like music that makes me feel intelligent while listening to it, like makes me feel big brained. But it's also just that a lot of pop is just derivative crap. Just really bottom of the barrel, derivative, lowest common denominator NPC shit. Like the kind of stuff you hear at clothing stores and shopping malls and stuff like that. Just really NPC garbage. So if I'm really hating on pop this much, why do I have it at number 7? That's because, as I said, pop is a very big tent genre. So there is some stuff that's technically considered pop that I do like quite a lot. Like some of this 80s pop, like the kind of stuff on the Vice City soundtrack, Bryan Adams, I guess even some of the synthwave music from more recently, like from the 2010s, could be considered a type of either pop or electronic music. It kind of overlaps between those two. Not to mention even some just straight up pop, like Kylie Minogue. She has some really good songs. Um, or like for instance, Cross's Chino Moreno's side project, like that's kind of pop, I guess. So like I don't know, there's some stuff that's pop that I really do like, and some of Steven Wilson's music dovetails into pop also, although it's more rock than anything, but I think some of it is more pop. Like he's a very versatile guy, so he's kind of all across the board. But yeah, I mean, pop music, all things considered, it would be one of the ones that I like less overall because of the average. However, there is some pop music that I really, really do like. So that's why I'd put it above the others that I've mentioned so far. Number six is jazz. Now, jazz is a kind of music. It's a bit similar to blues in the sense that I'm more indifferent to it than anything. But I will say I'm indifferent to it in a slightly more positive way. I do kind of like jazz as like background music. It's just not something I would ever seek out to listen to. But it's something like if it's there, if it's in the background, it kind of is good atmospheric music. I just don't care about it enough to actually seek it out and listen to it on my own. But I will say a lot of music I like has been influenced by jazz, like Pink Floyd, Opeth. A lot of bands that I like do have jazz influence. So yeah, I'll give it credit where credit's due. I'd say overall, most jazz music I like more than I dislike, but it doesn't interest me that much. So yeah, I put it at number 6. Number 5 is folk music. Now, folk, I just find impossible to define because the definitions I've seen of folk music are so broadly encompassing that they, as I said, they include everything from Bob Dylan to Tibetan throat singing. So it's like, what even is folk music? So I guess I throwing it somewhere in the middle is the safest bet because I just don't know how to define it. There's some stuff I like Gregorian chants and stuff like that, and some of this like old European type music that I really like. But it's not the stuff I listen to most, but I do enjoy it from time to time. So I guess I'll put this at number 5. But again, this genre I find impossible to define. Every definition of it confuses me. So yeah, I'm just kind of throwing it in the middle there. Okay, now we're getting to the genres that I really like kind of the bread and butter of what I listen to. So the top 4 of the main genres. Number 4 is electronic music. Now, electronic is again another kind of big tent genre. It includes a lot of stuff like trance, techno, dubstep, just electronic dance music. I guess maybe synthwave, trip hop. Like there's a lot house. Like there's a lot of different types of music that fall under the overarching electronic label. And I would say I like most of these types of music. They range from music that I'm like I sort of passively am okay with or like to music that I really love. Like say for instance your typical standard electronic dance music that they play at clubs, I'd say it's all right, it's fun to dance to, whatever, but it's not my favorite. However, there's other types of electronic music that I absolutely adore. Like I would say the types I like the most would include synthwave, so a lot of trance music specifically, like some of the more I don't know what they call it, like progressive trance or just different types of trance. The stuff that is a really like kind of ethereal like vibe to it, like the really like beautiful trance music. Trip hop definitely like Massive Attack and stuff like that. Prodigy is pretty cool. I don't know what subgenre of electronic music they fall into. But yeah, and then you get like yeah, synthwave, like stuff like the Midnight. I really like the Midnight. Again, I don't know, would they be considered more pop or electronic? It's hard to say. And other synthwave like Time Cop, 1983, and various other synthwave related artists. So yeah, I mean, and then electronic can even overlap with rock a bit. Like there's bands like Radiohead that incorporate both rock and electronic elements. Radiohead is definitely one of my favorite bands. So yeah, electronic music definitely comes in strong. Number 4. Number 3 will be rock. Now rock again, very big tent. It includes a lot of different things. But like I would say the kind of rock I like most, like a lot of prog rock, like say Pink Floyd, Porcupine Tree, Ocean Size. Also like grunge, like Alice in Chains. Some bands like that you call alternative rock, I guess, like Smashing Pumpkins. But yeah, like rock overall is a very broadly defined genre. Then you get stuff that's like borderline between rock and metal. Like I already mentioned Alice in Chains, but also like say Guns N' Roses or Skid Row. It's kind of on the borderline there. I like a lot of music that's kind of in that area that like border between rock and metal. But yeah, rock as a whole, and again, like getting back to like I mentioned Radiohead, which sort of overlaps between rock and electronic. And I guess you could put Sigur Rós in there as well. But yeah, I'd say rock in a broad sense, and a lot of again, I like obviously like there's a lot of good songs from like a lot of these 60s, 70s classic rock bands like Led Zeppelin, the Eagles. You know, I don't necessarily like all their songs, but I like their big hit like rock opera songs like uh Hotel California, Stairway to Heaven, Baba O'Reilly, etc. Like those types of songs, absolutely those types of songs are amazing. So yeah, I mean rock number 3. Number 2 I'm going to put as classical. Now, classical might objectively be the best type of music. I'm not even going to disagree with that. Uh, I probably don't listen to it even as much as number 3 or 4, rock and electronic. But why I put it so high is because I just have so much respect for it because it is gorgeous music. It is absolutely like at its best, classical music can be like transcendentally gorgeous. Like, I mean, like the best music of say like Beethoven or Mozart. It's just on such an amazing level. It's so gorgeous and like I would say some of my favorite classical music is like when it does have vocals, like say Ode to Joy or Mozart's Requiem or Nessun Dorma by oh gosh, why do I keep forgetting who did Nessun Dorma? Was it Puccini? I don't remember. Verdi's Anvil Chorus. Um, you know, like some of the like the really like grand vocal classical music like with vocals. I like a lot of that stuff, and also some of the like instrumental ones like Ride of the Valkyries by Wagner. There's also a lot of good film score music that you could consider classical, like say the Lord of the Rings soundtrack. and other Hollywood films. So yeah, classical music is absolutely astounding. It probably is objectively the best genre of music, but I just can't put it as my personal favorite because admittedly it's not what I listen to the most. So yeah, classical music, the pinnacle of Western music for sure, but I'm still gonna put it on my personal list as number two. So number one, and this should probably come as no surprise, is metal. Simply put, metal is my favorite genre of music. Metal kicks fucking ass. It's amazing. Um, it's awesome. Now, obviously, there's different types of metal. Some of it's shit, but when metal's good, it's really fucking good, and it does things that no other type of music really can, with the exception of some rock that kind of overlaps with metal. But like, I think what's great about metal is just this sheer sense of power. Like, it really makes you feel a strong sense of masculine energy listening to it, like power, rage, just epicness, like all these things. Like metal does it like almost nothing else really can, and it's almost like a drug in some ways. Like it's just like a stimulant drug at times. Like it can be so energizing just listening to the raw power and ferocity. Now that being said, not all the metal music I like is raw power and ferocity. Like say Agalloch or Alcest are very good bands that are metal bands, but they're actually their sound is a bit more chill, but it's very beautiful and ethereal. So again, like metal can give all kinds of vibes. Like it can be something like old school Metallica or Lamb of God that is just very energetic, very heavy, very powerful in that way. At times angry. Or it can be something like Agalloch or Alcest that I describe as more beautiful and ethereal, but at times in a very raw and harsh way. Like Agalloch, I think is perfect music for like if you're going like to the wilderness, like to the mountains, like on a hiking trip or something like that. Like it's perfect music for that type of environment. Whereas something like Lamb of God or old school Metallica is good to just if you just want to like rock out, if you just want to like or work out, like it's good workout music. It's good music for just if you just want to feel that masculine sense of energy, power, rage, and all those things. But as I said, yeah, metal's very versatile, and a lot of the best metal bands incorporate elements of other genres too, like stuff like Opeth, Agalloch, Alcest, Between the Buried and Me, Devin Townsend, Neobla Viscaris. There's a lot of overlap with other genres too. Like there's quieter parts and also heavier parts, and then kind of in between parts. And yeah, I mean, metal's a very versatile genre. A lot of it's very complex. There's and it a lot of it takes influence from many of the other genres that I mentioned. Like there's overlap with classical, with electronic, with jazz. Like there's all kinds of overlap. Obviously with rock. So much overlap with rock that the two, frankly, there's a big gray area, and that gray area is where a lot of the best music can be found. Like as I mentioned, like Alice in Chains, Guns N' Roses, Skid Row. I'd say some of Porcupine Tree's music is in that gray area too, or Ocean Size. But yeah, broadly, those are my favorite. Like ranking the broad genres of music, that's how I would rank them. Now, to get into more specific subgenres, I would say some of my more favorite would be prog metal, as I've kind of mentioned already, prog rock, trip hop, as I already mentioned, trance, um, synth wave, and also like classical. I find hard to break down into subgenres, so I would just say classical as a whole. But yeah, those would be kind of the subgenres I like the most. Um, I would say anything like prog rock, prog metal would probably be my favorite subgenre if I had to say. Like a lot of the bands that I like fit into that. I guess the term I've heard for it is new prog. Like a lot of the bands I like most fit into that subgenre, like say Opeth, Between the Buried and Me, Neobla Viscaris, Devin Townsend, uh, Tool, And I suppose also to an extent like Porcupine Tree, Ocean Size. And then there's others that are sort of adjacent to it, like Agalloch, Alcest, Deftones. So yeah, I would say like that's my favorite subgenre, whatever you'd call it. Like new prog is the term I've heard used for it. Um, it's mostly based in like the 90s to 2010s, I would say, especially the 2000s. I would say is the peak decade for that whole subgenre. But yeah, I mean, there is a lot of music I like, but I'm not gonna be like some basic girl that you meet on Tinder who would say I like a little bit of everything. I don't like a little bit of everything. As I said, I'm not very much into country. Um, and there's other subgenres, like even within metal, for instance, like straight up black metal, I'm not a big fan of. Like the closest thing to black metal that I like is, well, I guess Agalloch or some Opeth, and I guess Ulver's first album, but Bergtot. But like honestly, like straight up black metal, like stuff like Burzum and Mayhem. I mean, I just can't get into that shit. Nor would it. I kind of hate them because of the whole church burning thing. But regardless, like I just don't like that type of metal music anyway. But yeah, I mean, again, like there's certain subgenres that I just flat out don't like, even within genres as a whole that I do. But yeah, if I had to say, that would be the type of music I like music that makes me feel something emotionally, music that has more complexity, music that maybe can be very creative in terms of how it blends different genres together, stuff like that. I would say, generally speaking, at the end of the day, it's like, and again, like also like what I did mention, like there's also certain songs that I really like that just aren't by any like that aren't by a band that I'm super into, but I have to admit like that's a really good song. It's stuff like that does come around sometimes, like say like Everlong by Foo Fighters, Take a Picture by Filter, a couple songs by Broken Social Scene or Arcade Fire. Um, All India Radio has a couple really good songs. Can You Hear the Sound by them. Uh, The Canyon Behind Her by Dredg. I don't know how you even pronounce that. And there's a few like synthwave like one hit wonders also, like FM 84 with Running in the Night, or Mr. Kitty with After Dark. Like there's a number like that. Like, and I guess they probably fall into certain genres too, but yeah, like I just had to mention that because there are some songs that I really like, but they're by artists that like I don't like that much of their stuff. Or another would be The Grace by Neverending White Lights, although that has Dallas Green on it, and I am a fan of a lot of stuff by Alexis on Fire. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, there's some one hit wonders also out there. But yeah, those by and large are a lot of the types of music that I like. And even most of those, what I'm calling one hit wonders, they fall more broadly into one of the categories that I like either rock or electronic in a broad sense, like probably either of those. But yeah, fair enough. So those are, I guess, broadly speaking. Oh, Bjork, that's another artist I like. I guess she would fall into electronic, probably, like some overlap between pop and electronic. Like she has some trip hop influences, but I wouldn't call her straight up trip hop. But yeah, I would say those would be a lot of the artists that I like the most and the genres overall. As far as what I hate the most, as I said, not into country, and yeah, but I'd say the worst music is like Soulja Boy. Like really bottom of the barrel hip hop would probably be the most abrasive music in existence. Although there's some pop, some really really bad pop out there that I'd put at the bottom too. The absolute bottom. Oh, and I will say I do like some music by Coldplay. Like the album Viva La Vida, I actually think is really good. So yeah, I guess they're more. I don't know if you call them more pop or rock, but yeah, fair enough. But yeah, that's some of their music's not so great, but some of it's pretty good. So yeah, I guess those are my favorites.